Okay, we're here at the Stafford Hotel in London's Mayfair. It's a beautiful sunny day, and I'm being joined by Victor Chandler, one of the legends of gambling, and I'm so delighted that you'll be the first of our interviewees as we launch Beat That Bookie. Would you like to tell us about some of the background of Victor Chandler as a company and Victor Chandler as a man?
I started in the business in '74,
Right.
which was by a tragic accident because my father died at 50. I had a mother and two sisters at school to keep, so
Right.
and I was enjoying myself living in Spain at the time, sort of working in a hotel business, but was dragged into the industry.
Because your father was a bookmaker.
Was a
himself?
bookmaker, yeah.
Okay.
He had betting shops, big high roller based credit office and the race courses.
Okay.
And my grandfather had been a bookmaker, and he launched Walthamstow Stadium.
Right. So the Chandlers have been bookmakers through 3 generations.
Well, we believe, my great grandfather was a bookmaker, street bookmaker in the East End. So
Right.
it goes back quite a long time.
That was when they had to hide, wasn't it?
Yes.
And run.
And ran fast.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, so you got that going because you had to.
Yes.
But what stage did you decide that it was not something that you had to do in order to provide for the family, but it's something that you were really going to do successfully and expand and broaden, and knew that this was a proper big business you were going after?
Well, I think the big turning point for us was, strangely enough, the Jubilee, considering this is coming up to the Jubilee today. 1977, when we saw the emergence of a lot more people with a lot more money.
Yeah.
And the country was turning round economically. And it was Ascot that year that we recruited quite a few new high rollers into the business, the credit business, and I'm not saying there have been many ups and downs since then, but it made me realise that the business had enormous potential. I'm very lucky to have plenty of help with a few of the people that worked for my father, who gave me a very good grounding in the business.
What is your attitude toward betting shops now and the internet and or the other access to Victor Chandler, as it were?
We have just we've got our shop in Mayfair here, which is more like a betting lounge, which
I've heard about it. People have told me about it. They've
probably
got experience going there, apparently.
Well, we believe it turns over more money than any other shop in the UK.
Amazing. So I've heard of £30,000 bets going on there, and per race, for example.
That wouldn't be unusual.
Fantastic! It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it'd be nice to go and have a look at it one day. Maybe we will at Beat That Bookie. Amazing stuff. So that was the mid to late 70s.
That's right.
You got high rollers in. You're making most of your money out of racing.
99.9% of racing.
Okay, because I was going to come on to ask you about as the world has evolved in the gambling world. I mean, the changes have been significant, and you've been there throughout them all. So I'd love it if you could share with our viewers what those have been.
Racing was our predominant interest until the '94 World Cup, which was, there was an enormous change in my thinking as much as anything else. And also communications were changing. It was easier to get a call into Hong Kong or to New York than, you didn't have to wait 5 minutes to be connected. So things were changing, and we got a call from an acquaintance of mine asking if he could deposit a large sum of money with us in cash. And I said, well, where's it coming from? And he said, it's a friend of mine in Hong Kong who wants to bet on the World Cup, but he doesn't want to pay tax, so I'm going to be placing the bets at the racecourse, which was tax-free at the time, and we were charging 8% in the offices. I was on my way to Newbury, arranged to meet him for him to place his bets for that day's, for the first round of the World Cup, and he arrived at my office with £1 million in a suitcase, of which he gave us.
£1 million in a suitcase. What does £1 million in a suitcase look like?
I never saw it because I was on the way to the races. But he gave he gave my office manager £500,000.
Yeah.
And as one does, and took the rest to Newbury. About half an hour later, the office was raided by the armed police. There was a roadblock on the motorway, and he was stopped and arrested, and it took him 2 days to prove that the money was legitimate and had come from Hong Kong, and the man seriously wanted to bet those sorts of amounts during the World Cup. I mean,
did he succeed in his investments, or did you keep the money?
We kept most of the money, and that's what really changed my outlook on soccer, especially.
It's interesting, the sort of anecdotes, which I'm sure you have hundreds of, are fantastic for our viewers to listen to. I've actually done some research on you. I mean, there's plenty of things to read about you over the internet and various articles that have been done over the years, but I have a direct line to a guy who worked with you here. He's now living in Las Vegas, and he's sent me a list of anecdotes that I should ask you to. So we're going to have a little look here, and we're just going to have a bit of fun. Pick this one. It's the first one. Expelled from public school for gambling, and he was only there as the headmaster was paying off a debt to his father. Is that true?
There's an essence of truth. I was expelled from public school, but went to Millfield, and Boss, who started the school off, was a great gambler, both on horse racing and casinos.
Right.
He sent me to Ascot to put on bets. So probably the only headmaster that has ever done that. And I've been seen coming out of a betting shop in the local village. The master that reported me was told in very plain terms that, well, he's got a right to go in there. He's got to see how his father's business is going.
Quite right too.
Absolutely.
Right too. Excellent. Let's try another one. Okay, let's go. The South African Wonder Horse he owned, which was put on the wrong plane to America and ended up, he says, in Sweden.
No, wrong. Mauritius.
Right. You know who this guy is?
Pete Laverick, who I'm very fond of. Yes.
Well, he's ratted on you with these stories, but they're all quite good. Tell me about the Wonder Horse.
Heat of the Night.
Heat of the Night.
Because it was by a horse called Mr. Tibbs, if you know your films.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It was a horse we bought in South Africa, a friend of mine, and as a yearling, and was winter favourite for the Guineas and the Derby. It had 3 races and won them all easily. And then his first race as a 3-year-old in South Africa, it bled, which means it burst a blood vessel. And but the only place that you can do anything about it is because they allowed drugs in America to stop the bleeding.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah.
Lasix, which is, I mean, perhaps I'm old-fashioned, but I don't think it should be allowed because I think it interferes with the breeding of horses. But that's another matter. But the horse. We decided to send it to America because the trainer said that it was the best horse he'd ever trained, and it should do well in the States. So it was arranged. They all say that.
I've ever trained Mr. Chandler, seriously.
No, I think it's an old friend, and it wouldn't have told me lies. I don't believe anyway. But there was a storm the night it was boarding the plane, and 2 horses that looked similar got mixed up, and my horse went to Mauritius and the wrong horse went to the States. Unfortunately, the horse that went to the States hadn't had all the injections it should have had, and had to be put down, which is not the sad side of the story.
That's an awful end to that story.
It is.
Jeffrey Barnard's story and the Queen Mother.
Oh, like that one, yeah. Jeffrey was a friend of my father's and a friend of mine, and one of the greatest nuisances in the world once he's had a drink. But,
they wrote a play about him, didn't
yes,
they?
And it was
well.
very true to life. That was.
Victor O'Toole played it, which is a bit like an apple playing an apple.
Yes, exactly.
Really?
That's right. It works so well.
Yeah.
I'd taken Jeffrey to the races one Saturday, and the Queen Mother was a regular attendee of Newbury. She had a box there, and I decided to meet him on the way out because he'd spent most of the day in the bar, having exhausted his credit with everybody at the time. I bumped into him as I was walking between the stands towards the exit, walking towards the entrance to the Queen Mother's box, and she came out the doors. We all stopped to let her pass, and then Jeffrey Bernard was unwell all over the ground. In vivid Technicolor.
Were you there by association with him?
I hope not. It was one of those moments you start shuffling, don't you?
Yeah.
It's all too late, though.
Oh dear, awful. When did the aides just run around and clean up and that sort of thing?
Oh, and I think they just blocked her view, but it was one of those moments you just don't know. You start sweating, that's all.
Racing is a fabulous sport. There's all sorts of stories involved. You're now BetVictor, of course. The
Yes.
company has changed, so you're now just using your first name. I mean, I've always enjoyed betting, I have to say, when I know who the person I'm betting against is. Has that always been a conscious...
Yeah, and I think we still try and keep that feeling within the company because I'm still very much hands-on. When you've got 400 odd people, it's much more difficult to know everyone by name, but I do try and keep abreast of who's in the company, and I do try and walk around as much as possible within the offices. The idea of customer service that personal customer service that we try to give within the business.
Tell me about the offices. You're in Gibraltar now, and you moved there because of the crazy tax situation in this country.
Yeah.
And you're not the only bookmaking firm to go there, obviously, but not by a long way.
There's over 20 of us there now. We've got license 001.
Community in Gibraltar.
Yeah.
We bump into each other.
Absolutely.
Do you live in Gibraltar? Do you live in mainland Spain?
I live the weeks in Gibraltar and the weekends in Spain.
Oh, okay.
Holidays.
Okay. When we were talking before, we were talking about the things that have changed the face of gambling. I mean, the emergence of football. The internet must be another.
And now the smartphone. And the pad.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be as well. I think within 3 years, I think we'll be taking more bets on the smartphone and iPad than we are through the internet. I think it's changed. It's that big a change. Yeah.
How does your customer base break up regular punters, and I mean the sorts of £100 a month jobs, £25 bets, that sort of thing, and high rollers now? What is that sort of?
We focus. The high roller business is run in a separate way, and people rise through the business. What we can normally spot someone who needs particular service, and I believe we're in the entertainment business more than anything else, and.
I agree with that completely. It's supposed to be a good laugh, isn't it?
Yeah. That's what we try and make it. And losing £200,000 or £300,000 a year to some people doesn't mean a lot, and we're there to take it off them in the nicest possible way.
I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. What's the biggest bet you've ever taken and you've ever placed?
Biggest bet? It's all relative, isn't it, to your pocket. It's much more terrifying when you've got limited resources. Not to say that we've got unlimited resources now, but when you've got very limited resources when you're starting out, we've taken bets as big as £8 million off of someone in the night recently. But I have less concern about those now than I did about £2,000 bets, possibly in the 70s. Right,
I'm going to do this quick fire round with you. Which I think plays into the sort of things that you like. Brogues or Oxfords?
Oxfords.
Bentley or Rolls Royce?
Neither.
Champagne or beer?
Champagne.
Ascot or Dubai?
Ascot, definitely.
Football or horse racing?
Horse racing.
Okay, and finally, what odds would you lay me for Victor Chandler to be made a knight at any stage within the next 5 years?
God. A very big price.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you deserve one. It's been really good to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you, mate.